Question, is Tiktaalik good evidence for a transitional fossil? Evolutionists say it was predicted.
Well, it's interesting because this was almost exactly the question that we had the other night on the Standing for Truth channel when we were debating it. And the question is, are these transitional forms in the first place? And secondly, is it predicted? And it ultimately comes down to the way that you interpret things. If you know that something needs to exist, then you're going to start interpreting things that you find in that light. But John, do you want to have a comment?
Yes, we got Ian Juby, who'd been to see the stuff, and myself to edit it. There's an article on our Q&A website on exactly that Tiktaalik, right? Now, again, there's two sections of this. One is, how do you decide when something's intermediate? Because having been involved in education much of my life, I always remember your first lessons in classification, where they start with round objects, square objects, oblong objects, triangular objects, and they get you to arrange them in some sort of hierarchy to end up with round buttons. Now, you will end up with sort of a system of squares, diamond shapes, elongates, finally end up with round buttons. And you could say, well, I'll predict there'll be another shape here and there. Now, predicting the other shape, you have to realize, is a result of what you think goes in all of those shapes. Now, to call the shape you end up with intermediate is a consequence of your view, not a consequence of reality. Now, when you have a look at the classification system, I repeat what I said on the show the other night, Dr. Stephen Gould's problem. Remember Stephen Gould with the monster theory? The reason he came up with that sort of sudden appearance of monsters, etc., was that his comment is the actual evidence fits the biblical record far better, right? It fits the biblical classification system far better. Look up classification on our Q&A website. Look up intermediates on our Q&A website if you want some of these quotes. And he was the most reliable guy because he told you what the evidence was, even though he had some of the weirdest interpretation you could ever imagine. He knew the difference between his facts and what he was trying to say with them, hence his compliment to creationists. The creation system of classification of separate kinds is far closer to the evidence than the evolutionist ordinary one. Hence, we need a new interpretation. He didn't want creation. He didn't want after their kinds. He knew what the data was, supported after their kinds. So he came up with this fantastic sudden appearance, right? And of course, it's proved to be absolute nonsense. But he at least knew the difference between the buttons and the interpretation where to put a new button that you've just designed. So that's probably the most useful comment that came both out of the question answer show we had on Open Channel with Donnie the other day, Standing for Truth. I believe that's still available if you folks want to go look at it. Sam can put up a link for you if you like. But that's the best way of dealing with things like Tiktaalik. Go to the Q&A, look up Tiktaalik, look up Ian Juby's answer. He did a great job in the original research and checking it out. I've been to see the various Tiktaalik models as well as some of the original type stuff they've dug up. So that's probably enough from me, Joe.
Yeah, it's also just briefly worth pointing out that if you look at other examples of fossils that have been attempted to be fitted into evolutionary history, case in point, the coelacanth, which was supposed to be the sort of predecessor to the Tiktaalik in the sense that it's a fish with short, stumpy legs or short, stumpy fins that are supposed to have been evolving into legs because they're hard, short, stumpy, bony fins. And we only knew about them from the fossils. And so the argument was this is a fish on the way to evolving legs. Then comes Tiktaalik, which is almost evolving legs, and then you finally get these creatures which get out and walk on the land. And in a museum wall display, that looks like a pretty nice even sequence from fish to amphibian, or fish to kind of semi-land creature. Problem, of course, is we found coelacanth. It's regarded as a living fossil. It's a deep sea fish. It's nowhere near close to the land, even if you wanted to get out and walk on it. And its fins are, guess what? Fins, right? They don't actually use it for legs or anything like that. So you've still got a good example that the creature is still a fish and isn't on its way to evolving into anything, because it's still alive today, right? If it was trying to evolve into anything, it's stuck in a rut and found a dead end. So what it has done, however, is reproduce after its own kind. Now, you find that you can fit Tiktaalik perfectly into that biblical interpretation of after its kind, because it lived as it was until it went extinct. As far as we know, there's no indication that it evolved into anything else at all.